Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, Securing the WAN in the Enterprise Cloud Era. My name is Katie Fuqua, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Our featured speakers today are Elisa Caredio, Principal Product Manager at Citrix, and Sony Kogin, Principal Product Marketing Managed Service Providers at Citrix. Before we get started, I'd like to cover a couple of quick housekeeping details. We will have a dedicated question and answer session at the end of today's presentation, and I invite you to submit any of your questions at any time during the presentation using the Ask a Question window in the webinar interface. Also, this event is going to be recorded, and a link to the on-demand version will be sent out to everyone in a follow-up email after we finish. With that, I'm going to now go ahead and hand it over to Sony and Elisa to start the presentation. Welcome, and thank you again so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Katie. Hello, everyone. Sony here. I just want to extend Katie's thank you. I really appreciate the fact that you set aside some time in your day to listen to this webinar. So without further ado, let's take a look at the next slide here on the agenda slide. And just a little bit of forward in that this webinar is really targeted towards enterprises that are looking to deploy SD-WAN either as a self-managed or also known as DIY, also also as a managed service. Okay, typically a managed service when it comes to security is bundled together with a workspace and networking managed service as well, and that can come from two different partners, two different Citrix partners. That can be a Citrix service provider or it can be a Citrix managed service provider. The differences between the two types of partners, I'm going to touch on a little bit of detail as we go further into the presentation. Citrix really believes that there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to security. We have to be flexible. We don't want to limit our customer to one type of deployment model. But regardless of which one you choose to lean on, you can be rest assured that our SD-WAN provides strong protection of users, applications, as well as data, regardless of the location. They can be in your branches, they can be in your data center or in the cloud, but they all will be protected against any multi-vector cyber threats. Moving on to the next one, before we talk about the different solutions, let's take a look what is the business driver behind this. Well, there is a major modernization project or an upgrade project happening in our industry, and it touches many different verticals from healthcare, financial, banking, education, and the three foundational technologies that are making this possible, and that is networking, cloud, and security. And all these three different components are coming together into SD-WAN. And let's touch on each one of them in a little bit deeper. The first one is the advancement in networking technology. There's been a significant progress in networking technology in that when you compare the old router that has no understanding of application at the higher layer, typically the understanding or the intelligence of routers stops at layer 4. But right now, with SD-WAN actually understands application requirements. So you can have an application that require real-time treatment, for example, like unified communication or conference calling. SD-WAN will know how to treat that type of application correctly. You can have Microsoft Exchange that is very chatty, and it uses a lot of communication headers, and our application knows how to treat that Microsoft Exchange application correctly as well. Or you can be using, a database application or a graphic application that are very bandwidth intensive and do a lot of bulk or capacity utilization. We also know how to treat that application to make sure that it does not impact all the latency sensitive or real-time application and constrict the bandwidth as a result. Next is the cloud technology. Cloud is on the lips of everybody, right? Anything that can be cloudified will be cloudified. We're seeing a surge in the migrations of applications and workloads from local data center to clouds where the exact locations are unknown. Therefore, in order to make the application performance optimal, and the gateway device, in this case the SD-WAN, has to know exactly the latency that's going to be impacted and what the application requires. And in this case, our SD-WAN will recognize thousands of applications that can be located in the cloud. Last but not least, when you're talking about SD-WAN, where it brings together both private networks through MPLS and DS1 or T1, as well as public networks through DSL and cable, inherently you're bringing in a lot of attacks. And that is because through the public networks connection, you're exposing your network to a global, vast, open networks. And as a result, the threat surface will increase. And this is something that has to be addressed as a result. All right, moving on to the next slide. And this is a Gartner survey that shows back in November 2018, when they did the survey, 72% of the respondents said that security was their number one concern. And this is really, very understandable. Why? Because a security attack or a security breach carry a direct cost in the form of impact on the privacy information of the employees, privacy information of the company's customers that is impacted. And more importantly, as a result, it decreases the brand value of the impacted company. It can very often also reduce the market capitalization of the company. So that is the reason why this is a very top concern among the respondents. All right. Well, let's take a look at the 2018 cybersecurity statistics. This is a number that is derived from Verizon Data Breach Investigative Report, a very credible report that's been around for many years. Despite the 5 bubbles shown on this slide, I want to draw your attention to just 3 of them that I think really convey a lot of information on the nature of cyber threats. The first one is that number 76%, right? That shows that 76% of the breaches were financially motivated. As a result, since there are financial motivations behind them, cyber threats is not going to recede. It is, as a matter of fact, it's been growing by leaps and bounds year on year. So security is a responsibility of all of us, and this is something that has to be addressed accordingly. The next one is the number 49%, which is through emails. Emails are notorious gateways for attack Trojan horses, and the targets can be a data center, which is controlled by an enterprise, or it can actually be webmail, and which is a public domain. But any contamination in either one of that area usually will cross into the other as well. And that's where an attack typically happens, an infection that happens. What you're going to see with our solution from our partners is that they actually have ways of detecting this attack, and then will quarantine the source of the attack until it has been neutralized before allowing the traffic to be re-forwarded again. The last one is the number 24%. This is really interesting. Healthcare is the most commonly targeted vertical, and that is because healthcare information carries the highest dollar value in the underground market. So for those of many of our customers that are in the healthcare industry, be aware about this, and security is something that you have to consider very carefully. Our solutions are designed to address all these type of attacks, and Elisa will go through that in a little bit more detail later. All right. In summary, we have gone through why you need security. It's because SD-WAN is exposed to the public internet as a path to the cloud. Therefore, it increases the attack surface. So the key question here is where to deploy the enforcement points. And this is the focus of our webinar today. You can deploy the enforcement points either in a distributed fashion or in a centralized fashion or somewhere in the middle. It really all depends on your resources, the type of budget that you have, the size of business, and most importantly, what type of compliance requirements your business is under. If you're under a lot of compliance requirements, then you want a stronger security solution. Last but not least, I want to touch on the management platform. Management platform is something that can really make your life a lot easier. And Elisa is going to go through some examples, really interesting ones that will show you there are actually provisions within our management platform called the SD-WAN Orchestrator that will allow you to automate connectivity, and you can also create a workflow to automate the instantiation of a VM. And all this is designed to improve your security posture, unburden your in-house IT if you're a self-managed organization, and accelerate business agility. Next one, let's take a look on how Citrix implements security, right? Security exists in multiple different levels with our SD-WAN. The first one is at the box level. At the box level, our SD-WAN comes standard with protection of control plane, user plane, and as well as management plane. And the reason for this security is really not to prevent cyber attacks, but really to maintain the integrity and the information of each customer. So separation of customers is another one that we are very concerned about, and we put a lot of effort to make sure that customer information from one instance does not leak out into another. And we do that through several different means. We have built-in authentication, and for traffic that are egressing out of the SD-WAN, we actually encapsulate that with IPsec. Even for branch-to-branch traffic that is connected via private networks such as MPLS, we still encrypt that traffic. You may think that it is an overkill, but we are very serious when it comes to security. Next is the virtual routing instance. So your virtual routing instance is separate from another tenant's virtual routing instance if security is provisioned by a managed service provider as a service, okay? You can also define different zones, multiple zones, and this is part of a micro-segmentation approach. And on our management platform, we do support multi-tenancy and role-based access control. This is, again, to make sure that one customer is separated from the other customer. We also have SD-WAN integrated firewall, and this is based on a stateful firewall, and we also have large-scale NAT. The combination of these two features will prevent cyber surveillance. And the last one, and this is one where Elisa is going to go through in a lot more detail, are security solutions that come through partnerships. And we have partnered with Zscaler, with Palo Alto, to provide on-prem and cloud security capability. Now, these partners will help you prevent multi-vector attacks and ensure if you're an organization that operates under very stringent compliance, they can help you with that as well. Now, they have a range of security services, from the very basic secure web gateway to the very advanced next-gen firewall. And if you want to go to the an even more advanced security service, such as zero-day protection, you can actually subscribe to advanced threat protection, sandboxing, even global threat intelligence. All these services are available through our partner. So let's take a look at the integrated firewall that comes with our SD-WAN. As I mentioned, this essentially extends your centralized security you will still need a big full stack firewall at the headquarters or data center, but it extends that big firewall to branch perimeter, okay? So essentially you have a hub and spoke. You have the central firewall, and then you have a constellation of mini firewalls that are strengthening the protection, sort of a multi-layer approach. Now, the way we do it is, number one, we track the changing ports and protocols of SaaS application, let's say, and then we give those traffic direct path to the internet, because this has been marked as a traffic. By doing so, you get to reduce latency, you get to enhance the performance of your SaaS application, right? And there's an automatic zoning. But so what happens to untrusted traffic? Traffic such as web browsing, DNS, when you ping, for example. Well, these traffic will be marked as untrusted traffics and will be sent to the MPLS towards the big full stack firewall that's located in the headquarters and data center. So that way you can still have a safe internet browsing. Okay, this is model number one. But before I hand it off to Elisa, this is my last slide. I want to touch on our management platform. Our management platform, as I mentioned, can be consumed either as a DIY, that means you host it locally on-prem, you install it on your own server, you maintain it yourself, or it can actually be hosted in the Citrix cloud and provisioned to you by our partner service provider as a service, as SaaS, okay? And using this tool, you can configure your branch SD-WAN, you can configure on-ramp to the cloud, such as Azure vWAN, you can provision VPX on the Google Cloud, you can provision our SD-WAN VPX on AWS. What Elisa is going to touch on is that how you can actually integrate, how you can actually instantiate some of our partner services directly from our management platform. There's a tight integration there. You can also control some of the services in, for example, Citrix Workspace, Office 365. There are some dials that are available directly from our management platform. So with that, I want to turn this presentation over to Elisa. Go ahead, Elisa.
Thank you, Sony. Now we are going to talk about our partnership with cloud security vendors. Specifically, we're going to talk about Zscaler and Palo Alto Prisma Access, also known formerly as Global Protect Cloud Service. What we're doing on our Citrix SD-WAN is to facilitate and automate the connectivity to such cloud services. Why do we want to do that? We want to do that to provide flexibility and to provide simplicity to IT teams so that they don't have to spin their wheels and go and manually set up IPsec tunnels to such cloud services. Basically, we rely on APIs that automatically detect whether there's a traffic that has to go to such cloud services. And under the hood, we create the IPsec tunnels. The advantage of this integration is that the cloud services provide a single control point for policy management and allow IT to set up fine-grained controls from a security perspective in different points of the network. All right, now let's talk about how we have extended our partnership with Palo Alto to cover not only cloud deployments through the Prisma Access and our automated connectivity to it from the SD-WAN appliance, but also on-prem use cases by being able to run the VM series virtual firewall right onto our SD-WAN appliances. The advantage of this solution is that we can leverage the Panorama management tool that customer would have already deployed in the network to also manage the VM series instances running on the 1100 appliance, making Panorama the central point of control of security policies in the network. So let's go over a couple of screenshots that depict how easy it is to really configure these services, whether they are cloud services or whether they are on-premises on our own SD-WAN appliance. Here I'm showing how really, as a user, you would enable integration with Palo Alto Prisma Access, formerly known as Palo Alto Global Protect Cloud Service. It's a fully automated set of IPsec tunnels that strengthen our branch security. We do have a simple GUI where you specify what are the application objects that you want to protect via those cloud services, and you just specify those in the GUI. Now let's get to our extensions of the partnership to the on-premise use case. So as I said before, there are deployment organizations that prefer a fully on-premises deployment style where both the SD-WAN appliance and security are functions executed at the branch. The ability to do that is that you can block threats right at the entry point. And the branch offices or remote offices can themselves be subject to attacks, and therefore you want to block them before they propagate to the rest of your network. Our Citrix SD-WAN 1100 appliance has been designed with the ability to run third-party workloads in mind. We have 8 cores that we are able to carve out some of that compute power to run third-party VMs. And we have chosen Palo Alto to partner with because Palo Alto is one of the best-of-breed security vendors that have a very wide ecosystem. And so we're giving our customer the ability to run Palo Alto VM50 and VM100 right on our SD-WAN appliance, giving our joint customer the ability to marry our Citrix best-of-breed SD-WAN with Palo Alto best-of-breed security. And we offer our customer the advantage of branch appliance consolidation. You no longer have to have 2 different appliances serving 2 different functions at the branch. You have one single appliance that can do both SD-WAN and security. But we also want to appeal to those organizations, especially in highly regulated industries like healthcare, for example, or financials, where it's important to maintain separations in networking and security management. We do so by making sure that the Palo Alto security policies can be managed entirely by Palo Alto Panorama. Now let's see what are the deployment models that will support with this solution. First of all, as I said, you run the Palo Alto VM right at the branch site. So the first use case would be to be able to protect traffic that flows from LAN to LAN. In many cases, branch offices don't have a switch. They connect directly into their SD-WAN appliance. And if doing so, with the Palo Alto integration, we can inspect any traffic that flows from LAN to LAN. And this is critical because oftentimes attacks are not a result of a hacker trying to hack into your network, but rather a misuse of the network by an employee. A typical example is someone who's bringing their own tablet into the office, and the tablet is sat in a coffee shop and has picked up some malware. You don't want that malware to propagate into your branch. So you want to run functions like IDS, IPS right at the branch to block that threat. The other use case is clearly to be able to deploy distributed firewall policies or security policies in a distributed enterprise where you have traffic flowing through the WAN, and you want to create firewall policies right at the branch and then at your headquarters or data center. The third use case is probably the one where we will see a lot of deployments, and it's basically where organizations will increasingly use or adopt the direct internet access, meaning the local path to the internet to access applications, SaaS applications or applications that reside in the cloud directly from the branch. And in that case, as you exit right into the internet, you want to make sure you have all the security stack that allows to block any bad things that would come in from the internet as well. All of these will be fully automated from the VM provisioning to the entire life cycle of the VM through our SD-WAN orchestrator. Let me take you through the steps. And you realize that really is, we keep simplicity in mind. From our SD-WAN orchestrator, which is our SD-WAN cloud service, we do have the ability to distribute or push the Palo Alto VM series, whether it is VM50 or VM100, right to all the deployments or the branch devices that are part of your deployment. The appliance is then able to bring up that VM in what we call bootstrap mode. Bootstrap mode is nothing but a very lean configuration that the VM has to be able to connect to the Panorama management tool. It also has the ability to download its own security active configuration directly from Panorama. And from that point on, Panorama will manage that VM completely from a security policy management standpoint. Now, let's come to how to redirect traffic to the Palo Alto VM. We have a simple screenshot that outlines how to specify the details of the Palo Alto VM, what's the model of the VM, and what is the management IP of Panorama. All right, now let's see how we can redirect traffic to the VM series. We have a firewall template which allows users to specify how the traffic flows through the appliance. And we can specify policies based on zones, based on other network parameters, and configure actions for it. For example, you can say traffic flowing from zone A to zone B would be allowed or dropped, and these actions are taken by our own built-in firewall in the SD-WAN appliance. But we also came up with another action that allows you to, as you match traffic based on this criteria, redirect that traffic to the Palo Alto VM. And you can do that simply selecting this other action, and the traffic that matches this policy will be then flowing through the Palo Alto VM and be subject to the filtering that you would have configured through Panorama.
All right. Thank you very much, Elisa. Hello again, everyone. This is my last slide, and I encourage you to start typing up your questions because in the next slide, that's where we're going to go through them. If we don't have a chance to answer your questions in today's sessions, we'll answer them through email. I suppose your next question would be, are all the questions presented today available? The answer is yes, most of them are available today, with the exception of the Palo Alto VM running on the SD-WAN 1100 and the respective supporting feature, such as the ability to create a workflow to instantiate the VM directly from our SD-WAN orchestrator. That part will be available in July, okay? And it's worth noting that all the Citrix features mentioned today are free of charge. So the ability to create connectivity to Zscaler, the ability to create IPsec tunnel to Palo Alto Prisma Access, and the ability to redirect traffic to Palo Alto VM, all that are available free of charge. However, the solution from Zscaler, Palo Alto, that requires separate purchase. The next thing is what I would like to encourage you to do if you're interested in deploying any of the solutions we covered today is that to start gathering your requirements. The first thing you want to consider is this something that you want to take on yourself, or you actually want to partner with a managed security provider, right? Managed security provider actually can provide you with expertise that very in-depth. They can do vulnerability and compliance audits. They also have tools and equipment to actually baseline the type of traffic that you have at a particular site, the frequency of attacks, and that all can be monitored through their 24/7 security operation. So this is something that you want to consider when you make your decision. Last but not least is understand your own organizational preferences, whether this is something that you want to take on as a CapEx model, or if you do not want to spend a big amount of money up front, then the cloud option is the one for you because you'll be able to subscribe it. The last is whether you want to have the management solution, for example, as a hosted solution, provisioned directly from Citrix Cloud and managed by a service provider or managed by you directly, or you want to actually deploy our management solution on-prem. So if you need more info, there are 3 links there. If you click on the SD-WAN product page, it will take you right into our SD-WAN page. And if you want to explore partners, we do have 2 different types of partners. We have a global network of about 2,000 partners. Some are CSPs or Citrix service providers. Some are MSPs. CSPs, they're typically expert in workspace solutions, and they can help you integrate security and SD-WAN as well. Managed security providers, they are unique in that they have very in-depth knowledge when it comes to networking. So they can help you with the design of your network. They can actually deploy your SD-WAN multi-site, even if you're a multinational organization, and they can help troubleshoot, monitor, and optimize your network after they have deployed it. So really a cradle-to-grave type of a partnership when it comes to SD-WAN. Some of our MSP partners, they actually also have security operations service. So they're offering managed security as part of their whole bundled solution. Last, if you're interested in an SD-WAN trial, click on that last link. It will take you right onto a page where you can choose to try our SD-WAN, try our WAN-op, or you can even choose to get a call from our sales guys if you want to deal with us directly. So with that, I want to thank you once again and turn this over back to Katie. Go ahead, Katie. Go ahead, Katie.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So first of all, wonderful presentation. And as we do move into that Q&A, I would like to remind the audience that if you have a question, please do submit it still in the Ask a Question area on the screen. Simply type it into the text box and hit submit. And as Sony and Elisa mentioned earlier, if we don't get to all of them, we will be email responding because we do have quite a few questions lined up here. So it looks like the first question that we received is, does SD-WAN 1100 support other VNFs besides Palo Alto VM50/100, and how many cores does it consume?
Yes. So yes, Palo Alto is the first vendor that we have chosen, given the fact that it's one of the most deployed security vendors out there. in the industry. But certainly, we have built our 1100 appliance in such a way that it can run any VNS from third-party vendors. So our goal ultimately would be to build a set of security partners that we work with so that we give flexibility in choice of the security vendor to our customers. The second part of the question was how many cores does the Palo Alto VM consume? Well, the VM50 and the VM100 both require 2 cores.
Great, thank you so much. The second question we have here is, what version of SD-WAN image and management do I need to get automated connectivity to support?
Good question as well. The Palo Alto integration on the 1100 appliance will be supported starting with our Citrix SD-WAN 11.1. And in terms of management, our management tools version that are in sync with the 11.0.1 release will be supporting the automation and the ability, the workflow that I presented.
Alrighty, and the third question that we received is, how can I get help in assessing which security architecture fits my business needs best?
Okay, so this is where I highly recommend, engaging a partner. A partner typically, I mentioned this a little bit in a bit more detail in my summary slide, is that they have tools. They also have tools that are in the form of a box that they can place at a location of your choice, and they also have a portal and that can monitor traffic real time. So I recommend engaging either a CSP or an MSP. The links I provided in my summary slide, if you just click on that link, there are 2 lists. The first list is a list of CSPs. They are typically workspace experts that can also provide managed security in addition to managed workspace. Or you can click on the MSP list. Their starting point typically is the network. They can actually aggregate your broadband. They can manage your MPLS contract, broadband contract, even if you're a multinational company. And in addition, some of them, they actually have Security Operation Center, or what we call SOC. And these guys can act as your managed security partner as well. So check out those, start with that link that I gave you, and that's how you do it.
Great. The next one we've got here is, do you think NetOps and SecOps will always require separate skill sets? My business has several networking savvy techs, but not in security.
All right. I'll take that question, Sony. So it really depends on the organization, and it really depends on the size of the organization. When it comes to large enterprises, definitely I do see SecOps and NetOps being 2 separate IT teams with very different roles and responsibilities. So that's why when it comes to our Palo Alto integrated solution on the 1100, we've chosen a model whereby all the networking and the SD-WAN policies will be managed through our SD-WAN orchestrator. And in terms of the VM, our responsibility from a management standpoint is to bring up the VM. But when it comes to security policy management, we want to give that separation by letting SecOps manage this policy to the Panorama management tool.
Yeah, I have a point to add here, Elisa. So in general, your observation is spot on in that, security technicians are very difficult to come by. There's a scarcity of that skill set globally, not just in one specific region. So this is one area where we recommend when it comes to a security that you can seriously consider security as a managed service, right? So engage our service provider partner, and they can guide you along, and they can scope out your requirements and compare it with the some of the services that they have in store, and you can make a decision from there to see whether this is something that you can take on yourself or this is something that's better as a managed service. But in general, what we're noticing is that the larger company, large enterprises, they have that skill set to do it themselves. But for small to mid-sized enterprises, they typically have security as delivered as a managed service. Back to you, Katie.
Great. Okay, looks like we have time for a couple more questions here. This one is, are you planning to expand your management capability to support more security features?
Katie, let me take a stab at that one. So first of all, I didn't mention that directly in the presentation, but our management, SD-WAN management, as built-in a role-based access. What it means is you can create personas, a networking persona, which basically allow an admin to touch all the networking configuration aspects of the solution. And then a security persona that is responsible for the security aspects of the configuration. Now, I already mentioned that for the Palo Alto, we let the security policy be managed by Panorama, but for the part of the workflow that brings up that VM, or the part of the workflow that sets up the connectivity to the cloud services, in that case, all those portions of configuration will be under a security persona. As far as building more security capabilities, certainly security is always evolving. So we as all the security vendors in the industry, we need to adapt and be sure that we can respond to the latest threats.
Okay, great. Here we've got, can 1100 branch appliances have both PAFW enabled as well as have active tunnels to PA-GPCS?
Okay, so I think that what the person is asking is whether I can configure both the Palo Alto VM on-premise as well as a connectivity to the Palo Alto cloud service. Yes, you can. There's nothing in our integration that prevents that from happening. I do see that overlapping to some extent, but for example, there are organizations that rather have multiple vendors when it comes to security, and therefore they might want to layer, an on-prem Palo Alto solution with, for example, a Zscaler cloud service. In that sense, they can do so.
Great, and thank you for decoding that for me. Another one here we've got is, what version of PANOS software can be used on 1100?
All right, so our solution when it comes to the 1100 and the Palo Alto VM series integration has been certified with PANOS, which is the Palo Alto VM software, starting from their 9.x version, 9.0 and above.
Great, thank you so much. And that does look like all the time we've got for questions today. So to everyone who submitted them that we haven't gotten to, we will get back to them via email. But thank you so much, and that does bring us to the end of the presentation. I'd like to extend a special thank you to our speakers, Elisa Caredio and Sony Kogin, for a very, very informative presentation, and also to our audience. Thank you so much for joining us. As a quick reminder, you can always check out and register for upcoming webinars and events by going to citrix.com/events. We hope you have a great day, and thanks again.